Since Kevin Rudd was restored to the Prime Ministership, he spent most of the past 6 days behind closed doors with his colleagues, planning how he'll run the country and fight the coming election. The economy will be front and centre of the campaign as both parties wrestle with how to pay for multi-billion-dollar plans, how to restore the budget to surplus and how to dump or rework the carbon tax without plunging the budget deeper into the red. Today, the Reserve Bank kept interest rates on hold in response to volatility in the stock market and lower levels of mining investment. The Shadow Treasurer, Joe Hockey, is the man in the hot seat for the Coalition, and he joined me tonight from Canberra. Mr Hockey, the new Treasurer, Chris Bowen, today called out the opposition for its use of the term fiscal emergency to describe Australia's economic position. And he pointed out that Australia has low interest rates, low inflation and unemployment, solid economic growth and a AAA credit rating. Do you agree that overstating your argument undermines it?
Not at all, Lee. If everything was going so swimmingly, why isn't Labor delivering a much-promised surplus? And it is because they don't know how to live within their means. And that means that we are facing greater challenges in a weakened position. A weakened position because Labor is leaving a legacy of deficits, ongoing deficits, and over $340 billion of debt.
Prime Minister Rudd has invited the opposition leader Tony Abbott to debate him at the National Press Club on debt and deficit. Why are you scared to do that?
We're not scared.
Well, why don't you do it?
Well, this is the same old Kevin. This is the same old Kevin Rudd. Leopard doesn't change his spots. He won't tell us what the debt is. He won't tell us what the deficit is.
Well, you've seen the budget papers.
Well, and you know what? Last Thursday in Parliament, Lee, Kevin Rudd wouldn't stand by the budget.
Well, today, Chris Bowen, the new Treasurer, has said, I stand by the budget predictions that were put out in May. That is the government's budget and all the forecasts in there are the forecasts that we stand by.
That's right. It's taken 7 days for them to stand by the budget. But even so, Kevin Rudd has not done it himself. Yet he wants to have a debate about deficit and debt. Well, bring it on. He is the master.
But he has brought it on. So why don't you go and meet him? If you're on such strong ground as you say, you must be loving the opportunity to debate him.
Oh, we look forward to it.
In the National Press Club, you accept that invitation?
I'm happy to debate anyone, any time.
Is Tony Abbott happy to lead his debate?
And the same, Lee.
Okay, but so yes, that debate's going to happen.
Well, yeah, it will happen, but they've got to call the election. They've got to call the election. Labor is creating uncertainty by not giving Australia an election date. We had one a week ago. Apparently now we do not have an election date. And as the head of the Business Council, Tony Shepherd, said today, this uncertainty is destabilising business. It's undermining business and consumer confidence. And I say to Kevin Rudd, if you care for Australia more than you care for yourself, call an election now.
If Kevin Rudd heeded that and he called an election tomorrow, you could be the government in a month. So let me explore some of your policies. On the 5th of March, you said that if there is no carbon tax, there is no need for compensation. But now the opposition leader says there will be compensation even if you get rid of the tax. Who's right?
Well, we've been able to identify $13.6 billion of savings, which Tony Abbott announced in the budget in reply, which pays for cuts in income tax and pension increases without the carbon tax. So we've done that.
But if there's no carbon tax, why do you need compensation for it? That's the very point you made.
Well, and now what we're saying is instead of it being compensation for the carbon tax, the tax cuts and the pension increases are going to remain in people's pockets because overwhelmingly, Lee, we are concerned about the cost of living challenges that everyday Australians are facing. And we want to ease some of that burden. And one way to do it is to get rid of the carbon tax and leave the present taxation and pension system in place.
I heard Tony Abbott refer to it as compensation on the weekend. He deliberately said, we'll get rid of the carbon tax, but you will get to keep the compensation.
Well, that's another way of saying you're going to keep the income tax cuts and the pension increases, yes.
Do you stand by the statement that you made in April last year in London that all government-funded pensions and other such payments must be means tested so that people who do not need them do not get them?
Well, my bottom line has always been that you've got to try and help those people most vulnerable in our community. Now, there was a great report on Four Corners last night. I was moved by it, about people most vulnerable in our community. And the best way to help those people, Lee, is to have a government that has enough money in the bank to be able to help those people. And you can't do that if you're running deficit after deficit, which Labor is doing. You can only do it by having a surplus and having excess capacity to help those most vulnerable in the community.
If you want to help those people, would you consider, for example, deferring your paid parental leave scheme that would help highly paid women like me, and increasing the Newstart allowance to help those people that we saw on Four Corners last night living off $45 for a couple of weeks?
Well, let me say something about that, Lee. Our paid parental leave scheme is being paid by a levy on the largest businesses in Australia, who are also the beneficiaries of our paid parental leave scheme, which is going to increase productivity.
Well, the Productivity Commission doubts that, but would you be interested in increasing the Newstart allowance?
But hang on. In relation to Newstart, it is a huge figure that is associated with increasing the Newstart allowance. Now, I note on the Kevin Rudd campaign vehicle, which is underway now, where he's promising everything to everyone without any accountability, he apparently is going to increase the Newstart allowance. He's also going to cut company tax. He's going to change the carbon tax. He's going to get rid of the mining tax. All these things, you've got to have the money to pay for it. And the problem is that Labor doesn't have the money to pay for it. We would only contemplate increasing Newstart allowance if we had the capacity in the budget to do it, but there is none there, Lee. There's none there.
Let me ask you some very basic yes and no questions. Will your costings be checked by the Parliamentary Budget Office?
Well, we've already submitted over 140 policy initiatives to the Parliamentary Budget Office.
And all the new ones after here will also be submitted?
Well, we're submitting them all, and we've been working very closely with the Parliamentary Budget Office, but we have been going to a range of different sources, Lee, which is interesting, because only a few days ago, the Secretary of the Treasury said that the budget numbers were incorrect, or he said that the terms of trade assumptions were wrong in the budget. So even the budget numbers are not right. There is no oracle here. We are going to use the best available information.
Speaking of whom, does Martin Parkinson have your confidence as Treasury Secretary?
Well, he is the Treasury Secretary under this government. I'm not going to speculate on who has confidence and who doesn't.
People will read that as you refusing to say that you have confidence.
The one person I have no confidence in is Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister, and every one of the ministers. And there's been, you know, Lee, there's been 70 front benches on the Labor Party in 6 years.
Well, I want to stick to. I want to stick to what your side, because you could be the government very soon. Yes or no? Do you have faith in the forecasts produced by Treasury?
Well, the Treasury doesn't have faith in their forecasts as they identified.
I think they do.
No, I think they don't, because in Senate estimates, the Secretary of the Treasury reflected on the terms of trade and said they weren't quite what he was expecting.
Well, Treasury always revises their forecasts. It doesn't mean they don't have faith in their own forecasts. Well, I'm asking because there were some suggestions around the budget time that you were suggesting that Treasury politicised their forecasts to suit the government's agenda.
Well, a few years ago I said Labor would never deliver a surplus. That was in the budget papers, and I've been proven right.
But do you think, just be really clear,
sure.
Do you think that Treasury politicise their forecasts to suit what the Labor government wants?
Oh, I think the Treasury provides information to the government publishes the budget papers.
Joe Hockey, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, Lee. Thank you.